Hello and welcome once again to Dukascopy TV. I'm Ben Jones. Over the past few days, Turkey has had local elections and the annual GDP growth rate came out better than expected. Joining me on the line to discuss the current economic situation there is Dr. Michael Taylor from Oxford Analytica. Michael, I would like to talk initially about the GDP growth rate figure released yesterday. It beat most analyst estimates, hitting 4.4%. What were you expecting from this figure, and what does this signal for the current state of the Turkish economy?
We were rather expecting it to be starting to come down a bit. I mean, around about 4% might have been more we were expecting, so it's a bit of a surprise. But I think if you unpick it, if you start looking at some of the components, and one of the interesting things is that when you look at seasonally calendar adjusted GDP for the fourth quarter, it actually only increased by 0.5% compared to quarter three. Now that would imply that actually, although you got 4.4 compared with the previous quarter of the previous year, over the course of 2013, it looks like the economy is slowing down. Just mathematically, just to get only 0.5% in the fourth quarter implies that's less than what's taken place in previous quarters. And this is what we really are expecting, because the other interesting thing about these data is that what a high contribution is made by household consumption, which is about 5.3% growth. And that's a bit dangerous, really, because what we're expecting is that the government's measures to cut down on credit and the jump in the bank rate in February, we're really not expecting pressure to start increasing on household consumption. And in fact, also more figures came out relating to PMI, sort of forward-looking indicators. They're rather showing that domestic demand is starting to fade. So, having a strong component in the fourth quarter 2013 is likely to weaken in 2014.
Now, over the weekend there were the local elections. Erdogan's party gaining the majority with 45% of the poll. Obviously, on the lead up to the elections, there were a lot of corruption allegations and potential political instability. Now, following the elections, what's the situation?
Yes, Erdogan won the election, which he made a referendum on his governance. But I don't think it was a stellar performance, and it's worse than he got in the previous parliamentary. I mean, people are comparing it with the previous local elections. Yeah, okay, it's better than the previous local elections, but it's worse than the last parliamentary elections, where he got nearly 50%. It doesn't look to me as if it's a really resounding result, and there's a lot of accusations of fraud, though, of course, perhaps not enough to really seriously affect the result. But the point is, about the fraud allegations, that's going to sort of encourage the opposition to say, look, these were stolen elections. So I think he's got a lot of problems now. He's got, obviously, a very strong constituency who really think he's a wonderful prime minister and has delivered all sorts of good things to the Turkish population. They are still 100% behind him. They don't care what the opposition says about corruption. In that respect, Erdogan was right to say, the people have spoken, and it doesn't matter what the investigations are about. That the people are the final arbiter. I think what we're looking at is probably have to rephrase this a bit, but what we're looking at now is a sort of a political scene which is likely to become even more polarized, even more fraught. And we've got presidential elections coming up in August. Erdogan may well stand for president, and that's going to be even more of a red rag to the opposition. So I think from an investor's point of view, we're looking at a political scene which is becoming much less stable, actually, despite this apparent victory.
Now, Turkey obviously relies a lot on foreign investment, and many investors have been increasing their input into the country after a pullback. However, it's been stated that if Erdogan loses his grip and political instability starts to rise again, then foreign investors could quickly retreat and look elsewhere. What's your view on this?
Turkey's not been doing too well with the tapering from the US Fed, and that's sort of encouraged capital flows to reverse. They're highly dependent on capital inflows because their current account is so weak. So you need money on the capital side. And obviously putting up the interest rate, 10, 12%, I forget now, to be precise, in February, an attractive thing for investment. But I would have thought that, frankly, what foreign investment has been doing up until now has been riding the high growth rate in Turkey, the stellar performance that Erdogan has achieved in the last 10 or so years he came to power. So that's been obviously very attractive for foreign investors to get in on that act. But I think with the economy starting to show signs of weakening, And with this whole thing about political instability, doubts about the rule of law, if there's corruption, is the government going to tackle it or is it going to try and brush it under the carpet? I'd have thought that foreign investors would start thinking, well, I'm not so sure about Turkey now that I was until recently.
Michael, thank you very much for talking to us. That's all from me for today. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Dukascopy TV for more updates and exclusive interviews. Bye for now.